As I said, Woody's World, sponsored by my favorite place, Shanahan Steakhouse. I want to talk today about the Nuggets' next coach. I watched part of that game last night. They look like dogs again. I don't know why anybody. I mean, you have to be passing along the channel and go, whoops, the Nuggets are playing. Really? Did anybody know whether they won or lost last night or care or pay any attention to it? I mean, we're not even in a situation anymore where we go, lose every game because it's too late. They won enough games. They're just going to be 8th or 9th, and they'll get some rag doll at that position that won't help much. Really, after you get through 6 players, as Benjamin Hockman told us earlier in the year, that I think it's been something like 15 championships have been won in the NBA, including a player that was drafted in the top 6. That's why I kept saying, lose those games, lose those games. You want one of those turnaround players, game changers, franchise changers. They're not going to get that. They're going to get a guy that's a good player that's not going to be Aldridge or Durant or Westbrook or
LeBron.
Towns or LeBron. They're going to get somebody named Ferdinand, from a college you never heard of. So what is going to be important here? What is important is the next coach of the team. Is that Melvin Hunt? The reason why I bring this up today, Billy Donovan, sources say to Mark Stein of ESPN.com, is testing the waters to become an NBA coach. You may remember that he was offered a job and took it with the Orlando Magic just down the road from the University of Florida, and he backed out like 10 minutes after he accepted the job. But he's now 49 years old. And there's talk, Rick Pitino said he's the type of guy, Pitino was his coach in college, that Donovan's the type of guy who can make the transition to the pro game. Well, one of the 2 cities that was mentioned that Donovan might be interested in, and those teams might have interest in him, would be Denver, Colorado, and the Denver Nuggets. Is that a possibility? Do you want Billy Donovan? I don't like college coaches that come to the pros. If they haven't had the experience in the pros, how do you get the experience in the pros? Well, do it as an assistant coach, you do it as a former player, whatever it might be. But I don't like the transition from college coaching to pro coaching. I can give you 50 examples for every one you can give me that's worked out. I think that he will probably stay at Florida. I think if he came to the Nuggets, he wouldn't know anything about altitude. We'd go through another Brian Shaw thing. I don't think he would have any effect on the fans here going, oh, gee, I'm excited that Billy Donovan's coming to Denver. It comes back to Chauncey Billups should be the coach of the Denver Nuggets. And he sat here one day and said, I never say never. He wants to be an executive. Well, wouldn't it be great, though, if he were coach for 3 or 4 years? That's probably not going to work out. I just don't think Chauncey wants to do it. He wants to continue with ESPN, and he wants to work himself into an executive's job in the NBA. And I think he can kind of do that as Joe Sakic did for a couple of years, and probably as Todd Helton will do at some point during his career, as John Elway did when he worked with the Indoor Football League and kind of got adjusted to being on the executive side. So we come back to who is the right person. Is it Melvin Hunt? I don't think so. I think you want to cut the ties with all the Brian Shaw people, all the people from the past. I go back, and Les Shapiro had said this one day. If I'm wrong, tell me. Mike D'Antoni. And I was initially, he was here, and he got fired pretty quickly. Well, I think you could sell Mike D'Antoni, and that would be an advantage that he was here for a while, because he knows what it takes. And his system works perfectly at altitude. It worked at no altitude in Phoenix. Oh, yeah, didn't work with the Knicks. Well, the Knicks didn't have anything. It didn't work well with the Los Angeles Lakers. Well, Kobe Bryant didn't like him, didn't like his system. Mike D'Antoni is floating free. And here's another point that Les makes. I'm being a pro Les Shapiro guy today.
Thank you, Woody.
He would come cheaper than a Billy Donovan, who's going to demand, he already makes $4 million in Florida. Stan Kroenke and Josh Kroenke are known for not spending their money on executives. That's why George Karl really was gone in that last year. He wanted a raise and extension. They didn't want to pay it. They felt like they could get somebody that was better than George Karl at a cheaper price. They're going to owe Brian Shaw $2 million next year, so think about that. They're not going to spend $5 million on a coach. They're not going to spend $4 million. At best, they're going to spend $3 million, and they don't want to commit that because they've already got Brian Shaw on the hook for $2 million. Mike D'Antoni is the guy. He will get back to running basketball. He is an experienced coach, both in European leagues, in the United States, in the NBA. I think he's a guy who's a perfect fit here, who could get this team back on track. That from the coaching side. Now, the player side, that's going to take a lot more work, but I think you don't spend as much time thinking about the coaches. You do the players that you get that would fit Mike D'Antoni. Maybe a younger type Steve Nash. If you could find him at that point. Steve Nash, coming out of college, had played in the NCAA, but people really didn't know much about him. Two-time MVP. Mike D'Antoni. I'm Woody Paige, and that's my opinion. Woody's World is sponsored by Shanahan Steakhouse. Treat your family to a special meal this Easter at Shanahan's. They've got a special kids menu, and because I'm about 12 years old in my temperament, they've created one just for me and the other kids watching the show. You can get a filet. You can get fish and chips. And my favorite, sliders with a side. So sliders with lobster, mac and cheese, and a dessert. Make a reservation today with our friends at ShanahanSteakhouse.com.